Knowing the story of Hastur, King in Yellow, and Carcosa, and how strange and deadly this horrifying cosmos place is, we are now graced by a new update, unveiling more details about this ambiguous story and the true shape of the baby. Hi folks, I'm R, your narrator. You can follow me on Twitter where you can suggest me videos and catch up. This video will contain spoilers. With that said, let's begin. The babysitter, possibly a new one, as the last one alongside many others seemingly were taken to Carcosa, the dark planet with dark stars, is assigned to take care of the eldritch godlike baby. You can watch the previous video I made about the game to catch up with the story, which you can watch by hitting the card above. Things starting out as normal, carrying out a repetitive routine of taking care of the baby, unclear of how the sitter even got the job in the first place and whom the parents of the baby are, things start to take more sinister turns. Drawings on the fridge, presumably by the child, showcase how it's an eldritch entity with supernatural powers. It also depicts how the child cries when it's left alone, presumably with babysitters leaving, hence why the baby wants to trap them, keeping itself company. Also, a white rabbit is shown, which will later show the protagonist the way out. Following the white rabbit, the protagonist takes the elevator with a Lovecraftian sign imprinted on the interior wall, which presumably mind controls the people and the victims. Then a transition includes a text about Pigman's madness, which seems to be inspired by Pigman's model, a short story by H.P. Lovecraft in an issue of Weird Tales written in 1927. The story revolves around a painter called Richard Upton Pigman, who has a horrific imagination and paints gruesome and graphic imagery to the point that his membership is revoked in Boston Art Gallery. After his sudden and mysterious disappearance, the narrator of the story, his friend Thurber, tales how at one point he was invited to Pigman's secret gallery in a rundown slum, as Pigman trusted him, with Thurber being a true follower of Pigman and understanding the beauty in the sickness and grotesqueness of his imagination and vision in painting. The horrid and horrific paintings caused Thurber to grow more and more anxious, with fear enlarging the room and making the creatures and the bipedal, canine-like ghouls chewing on human victims seeming alive, as if they are real creatures. Suddenly, hearing a harsh noise, Pigman goes out of the gallery with a gun, starting to shoot. Meanwhile, Thurber finds a rolled paper on a painting and takes it in his pocket in the shock of the moment, when Pigman, bloodied and with the smoke of the gun, coming back to the gallery, mentioning that there were nothing but some rats. As Thurber leaves the gallery, he realizes he took the rolled paper by mistake. When he unrolls it, to his shock, he witnesses that in fact the creatures and ghouls Pigman was drawing was not part of his vivid imagination, but based on real encounters. The rolled paper is a photograph of a creature from the paintings. Pigman encountered real ghouls and canine-like entities eating humans, with him drawing them. According to one of the paintings resembling Pigman himself, it's concluded that Pigman was a ghoul himself, who was scrutinized for his vision, therefore possibly went down to the tunnels burrowed underneath the ground and sewers where ghouls lived to be more accepted. Hence why Thurber developed the fear of taking Saltway due to many attacks on humans there. While in the elevator, it starts crashing down and free-falling, with the protagonist strangely surviving. The elevator door then normally opens, with white rabbit signs appearing on the walls. Trying to use a door to exit the hallway, the door gets chained up with a door labeled 509 opening, with the baby in yellow seemingly living there now. This showcases how the baby has control over the entire building, and possibly even outside. Playing the King's lullaby piece on the piano, a secret passage is opened, with a record hidden inside. Playing the record, the baby is distracted, with the protagonist managing to take the key from it. Managing to open the padlock on the chained-up hallway door, the protagonist is faced with the elevator again, but being out of power. In the power room, the protagonist takes two different fuses and puts them in their sockets accordingly, with the elevator being powered up again. Leaving the power room, the baby seems upset with supernatural ticks appearing to dissuade the protagonist from leaving. Nonetheless, the protagonist reaches the elevator, with the baby then transforming into a hostile eldritch entity, chasing after the protagonist. The protagonist narrowly manages to escape and get into an elevator when a text then appears by Haster, being known as the Haster's Plea, also known as the King in Yellow, insisting on the protagonist staying and not leaving. When the elevator door opens, the protagonist finds themselves in the exact same apartment from before, but being mirrored now, seen on the texts of the books. Proceeding to unlock a chained door upstairs, previously the baby's room, the protagonist manages to go to the hallways again, where the baby tries relentlessly to stop the protagonist. With a list of instructions asking the protagonist to repeat the same tasks, such as feeding the baby and taking it to bed, the protagonist ignores them, knowing full well that they are trapped in a loop set by this eldritch entity. Not sure how they got here in the first place, with no parents even being present. The next trick of the baby is to make the protagonist fall asleep by watching TV for a new day to be restarted. Evading all of the baby's traps, the baby becomes more persistent, trying every possible way to make the protagonist stay, pleading and begging. Regardless, the protagonist follows the white rabbit, which transitions the baby into the monster again, chasing after the protagonist relentlessly. Evading the baby even further, the protagonist arrives in a large room filled with enlarged obstacles when finally the protagonist manages to escape. A mysterious text then appears that despite this little success, there will always be more, seemingly as if the protagonist is trapped in the baby's world. If the protagonist from the original story is the same as this one, then it's possible that the protagonist is trapped within the misty and dark Carcosa, which would mean they will never escape. Managing to escape the baby's domain, which was this little mimic of a building, will only provide the protagonist with a short respite, presenting him or her with the real true horror of this place. Seemingly, the protagonist forgot of where they are and how they got there, knowing they have to follow certain daily tasks of taking care of the baby, with the protagonist sleeping each night, resetting the day with her or him forgetting again. The baby clearly did not want to be alone, hence why it traps babysitters for eternity, being its subjects. The recording played seemingly by a previous babysitter sheds more light that in fact more babysitters were recruited by this eldritch entity, whom some managed to escape, just to be presented with the horrific truth of where they are. A sad, lonely, dangerous place, which would cause their death soon after.
Snow. A curiosity in July, following such a sweet spring. It started when I took this job, but I was not the first. They are with me. Night fell the first day, and the hours dragged on. Still we cared for the child. We spoke of Haster and Casilda in their absence, while outside the fog rolled in as the cloud waves roll and break on the walls. Oh, the sin of such innocent eyes, clear as crystal, understood by the ignorant and wise alike, more precious than jewels, more soothing than music, more awful than death. Then, as I fell, I knew that the baby in yellow had opened their tattered mantle, and there was only God to cry to now.
If you enjoyed this video, why don't you stay tuned for more by hitting on the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your host Dar, and I will see you next time.